He is the king of the B-movie makers.
He was just a super efficient guy.
He is an extremely intelligent man, almost to genius level.
He proved that entertaining films could be made on a shoestring.
He's always thrifty with a buck, but he always knows when to spend a dollar to make a dollar look like 10 on screen.
He was born with cheap genes. No argument about it.
I think it's great to scare people. I think it's fun, and I particularly liked, as I moved along deeper into it, combining humor with horror.
He often mixed comedy with horror, as in the now classic Little Shop of Horrors, one of Corman's most quickly produced and most beloved films. Little Shop of Horrors was so unique and its cult following so strong that many years later it was developed into a successful Broadway musical, which also became a film. Born in 1926, Roger Corman expected to follow in his father's footsteps and become an engineer. But after graduating from Stanford University with a degree in industrial engineering and serving a tour of duty in the Navy, he was drawn by the siren call of Hollywood instead. He landed a job as a messenger boy at 20th Century Fox. It paid $32.50 a week. When an opening popped up in the studio's story department, Corman seized the opportunity to double his salary as a script analyst. But from his very first day on the job, Corman's eye was on bigger and better things. He wanted to get off the Dream Factory floor and strike out on his own, to make his own films and bigger money. With these goals in mind, Corman launched into producing his first independent feature, Monster from the Ocean Floor. Corman's ability to produce a releasable feature film on a less than shoestring budget with wide appeal to America's movie-going teenage youth quickly brought him to the attention of two enterprising gentlemen with similar ideas and independent filmmaking dreams of their own. James H. Nicholson was a former motion picture booking agent. Samuel Z. Arkoff was an entertainment lawyer. Together, they had created an independent company to make teen-oriented movies for the growing youth market of the 1950s. Their company was called the American Releasing Corporation, but in a few short years, it would be renamed American International Pictures.
Roger was really ideal for us. In the beginning, you see, he both directed and produced each picture.
Roger Corman would become AIP's most important director. AIP and Corman were the first to see and to capitalize on the baby boomers whose pockets were heavy with unspent allowances.
So who was going to the movies? The young people, the teenagers and the unmarried 20s. And why were they going to the movies? First, they had to get out of the house, and secondly, their parents were delighted to get them out of the house.
Their goal was to provide that audience with laughs, scares, and action in films that were produced cheaply enough to ensure a profit.
I had been a big fan throughout the 60s of the AIP pictures that he was making, which I, in college, and my friends in college, felt were sort of very exciting and off the mainstream and quirky and took chances and were a lot more fun and sort of exciting cinema than some of the stodgier stuff that was coming out of the studios.
The first film Corman produced for Nicholson and Arkoff was The Fast and the Furious, a race car thriller.
They took that picture around to the exhibitors, and with that picture sold it as part of a package that, okay, if you buy this picture for your territory, you have to give us money to make 2 other pictures. And that's really how American International got started.
He expanded his directorial efforts later the same year with a pair of westerns, 5 Guns West and Apache Woman, both made for Nicholson and Arkoff. But it was the team's next project that set the direction the company and Corman would take in the years ahead, The Beast with a Million Eyes.
From billions of light years away, I approach your planet. The birds of the air, the animals of the forest, they shall be my ears and my eyes. And because I see your most secret acts, you will know me as the Beast with a Million Eyes.
When Roger would go off on these things, and we were doing so many, we would have to do a lot of things like even watch the editing. And when Roger could come back, he'd come back and put in his suggestions. But finally, when we got a work print, Jim and I sat there, and there was no Beast with a Million Eyes. I called Roger, who was out on the road. I said, Roger, for God's sakes, we're selling a Beast with a Million Eyes. That's what everybody wants to see. Where's the footage? And he was evasive for a while, you know. And he finally said, well, I never shot it. I didn't have the time, and I didn't have the money. And he said, you guys think you're so good, you put in the Beast with a Million Eyes, which was the kind of thing we had been doing anyway, you know. And so we did a number of things, including getting a kettle and putting about 50 holes in it for the Million Eyes, and running vapor through it, you know, this tea kettle. And the vapor kind of clouded the thing off, and that became our Beast with a Million Eyes.
As the 1950s wore on, Roger Corman began turning out films at a feverish pace for AIP, as well as a rival studio that had begun to dabble in films for the youth market, Allied Artists.
He just cranked it out. He kept the action moving, and he did some different things.
He was very energetic. I mean, the man earned his money. I mean, he was making 6 or 7 pictures a year.
Even though he shot his films fast and furious, he knew how to put in a lot of little entertaining extras that made his films very watchable and enjoyable.
Roger's a great producer and a great guy in terms of how he puts it all together and creates a great-looking product for not-so-great bucks.
I tried to hire back, particularly in production, everybody who had been good on the previous picture and dropped those who had not been good, so that in a very short period of time, I had eliminated the average or below average crew members and had put together a kind of a stock crew of very good people in every position.
I think most of the people that worked for Roger have good things to say about him because he gave them a chance and nobody else was willing to give them a chance.
My relationship with Roger was just great. I mean, as long as you gave him what he wanted, which was a certain amount of exploitation stuff that he knew he could sell, he pretty much let you do whatever you wanted.
The best film school you can go to isn't USC, isn't UCLA, it isn't NYU. It's if you can get apprenticed to Roger Corman for a while.
He let you make your own mistakes, provided they could be fixed later, and they always were, if not by you, then by someone else. And he was just a really great film school.
I learned a lot from him. I learned how to cut, I learned how to edit, write, and make a $1 million movie for a fraction of the cost.
The thing that I heard most from Roger is he'd finish a shot, he'd say, we're on the wrong set, and walk quickly away. And then everybody had to quickly get the camera and roll everything over to where it was going.
It conquered the world.
It conquered the world. It was supposed to be on one of the huge planets, a planet much bigger than Earth. And I tried to calculate this. Anything living and moving would be low to the ground to fight against the gravity. So I designed a creature that was very wide and very thick and heavy and came up only about this high to be low to the ground. And we were getting ready to shoot on the first day, and it was there, and it was exactly what I wanted. And Beverly Garland, a very hip actress who was my leading lady, came up to it, and she made certain I was watching her, and she looked at it, and she looked down at it, and she said, so, you've come to conquer the earth, eh? Take that. And she kicked it. And I said, everybody stop. And I called Chuck Griffith over. No, not Chuck Griffith, Chuck Hannawalt. Chuck Griffith was the writer and assistant director. Chuck Hannawalt was the key grip. And I realized I was correct scientifically, but psychologically the monster always has to be bigger than the leading lady. And I said, Chuck, I'm going to change the schedule. I'm going to shoot something else this morning, but that monster has got to be 10 feet tall by the time we come back from lunch. And indeed, it was 10 feet tall at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
I suspended my disbelief. Here comes the rubber monster, and it conquered the world. Fine with me. It looks great. I loved it.
Typical Corman films of this era were Attack of the Crab Monsters,
Giant crab monsters that were really physically big. They weren't trying to put anything over on you like special effects. They were just big, giant crabs that could think and wanted to rule the world. And I said, man, at 7 years old, this scared the hell out of me. And it originally came out on a double bill with Not of This Earth.
Not of This Earth is one of the most unusual vampire movies ever made. It's a vampire science fiction movie.
I recall seeing Not of This Earth, and at the time being rather horrified at a couple of things in that movie. I thought, wow, gosh, they're going too far.
He's looking for only one thing: blood.
Human victims for human blood. Experiment in horror to satisfy a desperate need never before known. A need that was not of this earth.
It's pretty creepy and effective, and it shows that even with little money you can make a scary film if you have some original ideas and some disturbing concepts.
Unchain yourself from this world.
As far as I know, The Undead is the only horror film ever made in blank verse.
I could not tell you before, but now because I love thee, because I must help thee, I am a witch.
I am thy match, witch.
But it was written in such a way that the lines could be read as straight lines, and I thought it was kind of interesting to do it that way.
No, the unearthly horror of untimely death.
The concept was rather strange because it had to do with reincarnation. So Chuck and I came up with the idea, and the original script was called The Hypnosis of Diana Love. And after we made the picture, in which Pam went back in time, I think, to the Middle Ages, the interest in reincarnation and hypnosis seemed to have faded, so we just changed the title to The Undead and sent the picture out anyway.
One of my favorite stories about Corman racing through the day, making setup after setup, is when he needed a shot of the sunrise for the undead. He figured a sunset will serve as a sunrise, so he, you know, everybody was kind of packing up to go, and he told the cameraman, "Oh, just one more shot, get that sunset, get that sunset right there." And the guy says, I'm out of film. He says, "I don't care, get it anyway."
In 1963, Corman unleashed a film of still disturbing power upon his unsuspecting teen audience.
August 14th, notes on experiment, designated X. Experimental subject, myself, James Xavier.
The film starred Ray Milland as a scientist who develops a drug that gives him X-ray vision.
X, the man with the X-ray eyes.
Are you all right?
It's like a splitting of the world.
More light than I've ever seen. Filled with light.
X, the man with the X-ray eyes. A doctor with the power to see what others cannot believe.
Push up your sleeve. No!
Eventually, Milland's scientist goes mad. The drug has allowed him to see too much.
I thought X, the man with the X-ray eyes was a valiant attempt to make a interesting, thought-provoking comment about, you know, man trying to see beyond his grasp.
The subtext of my film was a deliberate creation. It was designed in from the beginning. I first became concerned with that when I did a picture called The Intruder, which was about the racial integration of schools in the American South, with a new young actor, Bill Shatner. It got wonderful reviews. It won a number of film festivals. The lead review in one of the New York papers was, I remember it, "This motion picture is a major credit to the entire American film industry," and it was the first film I ever made that lost money. And I felt from then on that while I wanted to have my own feelings or emotions or political statement, if you wish, into the film, it should not be so much on the surface. I should make a pure entertainment, whether it was science fiction, gangster, horror, whatever. The audience should get what they came to see, but beneath the surface, subtextually, there would be a meaning